the other thing that we would do is what we call as most. We can use the most tool: mission, objectives, strategy, and then the tactics. So this is another tool that I found it very interesting, coming in from BCS model. So I've been using it for a good 8 years now. I found this very interesting. So just to kind of explain you what this means is, it actually says that you establish a mission. You have some set of mission. What does a mission mean? It means that you define what business you are in. I think if you're in transport, you say that I'm to be the transport operator. You're in the enabler, your technology aspect. So again, this is an interesting thing, because right now the differences between the technology and the business have been kind of blurry now. So what would you call Google? Is it a technology company, or is it in the automotive company, because they're coming up with the driverless car, for example, in the next few months, I guess. And same with for example, the some of these, Tesla, for example. Is Tesla, is it an automotive company? Or is it a technology company? So what should Ford and GM and the Audis of the world, who are they really competing against for the driverless car? Is it automotive company, or is it a technology company they're fighting with? Because when we talk about this, all these companies are relying more and more on the AI and the machine learning to come up with this the kind of driverless concept, the autopilot mode, to understand the image recognition and so on and so forth. There's a lot of those kind of AI tooling and thinking going on. So is it automotive or is it technology, as in the software technology development? What is it that they're into? So perhaps it's a blend anyway. So we need to define the clear business, the kind of area of operation that we are in, we want to get into, what we intend to achieve from this product. And it's better to always have this as a single a single statement, instead of having 10 different things. Again, the prioritization would really help us get there. So for example, in this context, I'm saying that the example could be the leading supply of spare parts to the global automotive companies. So are you talking about, so we can actually say that this is where we want to operate and play in. This is the kind of the vision that we have for this company. And so we say that clearly in the mission. Now, with that mission in place, if you want to really be the leading player in the automotive spare parts, then you can actually kind of be a supplier to Ford, be a supplier to global. If you say global, you can actually be a supplier to Ford, mostly American, US, American, the Europe players, but as well as you can actually go into Audi, into the German market, Volkswagen. You can actually try and get into the next level. You can actually get to the Teslas of the world, the driverless and the electric vehicles, for example. So are you trying to actually define your market sliced down only to the, no, it's only for petrol driven vehicles, or is it for the electric vehicles as well? So again, the way you define, that's what I remember a saying called marketing myopia. It's a very famous case study while I was doing my MBA, being talked about by Theodore. What it talks about why companies should not actually define themselves too blinkered and too myopic. So for example, in the context of that case study, he gives an example of a company which comes up with a better serving whip, because previously cars were driven by horses, and then they used to have the whips to whip these horses to move forward, the wagons they were called, not cars. So this company initially was actually spending more and more effort and money and resources on coming out a better whip and a better light and better things, but not really on the technology of the engine. So obviously, needless to say, it went out of the market. And so also we were discussing Kodak, right? The Kodak company, about last week we were talking about why it was spending all its millions of funding into making a better film technology, whereas the rest of the world moved on into the digital photography and digital photos and no film photos, whereas Kodak was behind the curve, and so obviously it had to stop its business. But wise people actually think a bit more wide, and that's a bit wider and deeper, and that's why wiser companies, for example, like IBM, we were talking about how it started off with machines, huge machines, big room occupying machines and computers, down to PCs and servers and blade servers and all that. Suddenly they said that we are not in this business anymore. They actually were smart enough, were nimble enough, or agile enough to actually sell off that business and get into the services space. So they're not myopic anymore in that sense. So it's all about that. And then once you have got the mission defined, you define the goals against which you achieve. So goals are the objectives, or the kind of benchmarks for you, milestones for you to go after. And so what are these objectives? How can you define them? So objectives are specific. They're the SMART objectives, or SMART goals as we call: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. So they should be these. For example, a good objective could be to increase the sales of auto spares by 35% over 5 years. So you're defining the period, you're defining by how much you would like to increase that, and you would also say what is it that you're trying to increase. So it's increasing, and then the number in a specific period of time. This is a good objective. So we talk about, I mean, I think I mentioned this briefly in the last few weeks. We talked about the critical success factors, the key performance indicators, and the performance targets. So this is a performance target. It talks about a target of 35% increase of sales of auto spares. That's the CSF. That's the critical success factor. In the key performance indicators over 5 years. It's not next year or in 10 years, 100 years, but in the next 5 years. So that's an objective. And then you derive your next set of things based on this objective. If you want to do that, how can you do that? How can you achieve that objective? To improve cost efficient production of spare parts by 10%, 2 years, blah, blah, blah. Right? Those are the objectives. And then comes the strategy. So you have strategies like a game plan, is like a plan to achieve the objective. So you specify approaches to achieve the stated objectives. So you come up with multiple strategies. It's not just one. It's not one-on-one, right? There's no one-to-one mapping between objective and strategy. So you come up with multiple strategies to come up to achieve an objective. You can have more than one, more than 2, 3, 5, 10. So and these are again aligned to the objectives. These are meant to achieve the objective. So for example, in this case, target sales increase just before the period of new vehicle registration date. So you're talking about how can you achieve that objective of increasing the spare parts sales by 30%. You can do that by this is the approach that you can, this is a road that you can take to approach that. You can actually, just before the period of new vehicle registration, there's that window of opportunity that you get when the dealers would actually ask customers to register their new vehicles. So then what we can go after that particular period and say that, yeah, just before that starts, we can go after these dealers and try and get the spare parts, because they want to make sure that the vehicle is spick and span, right? So they can invest on that. Increase the share of supplying the space to defense vehicle. This is a market. So you can have one of the strategies could be to define the market, which kind of market you would like to go, what geography would you like to go, what vertical you would like to go, what domain, aerospace, defense, retail. They're all different domains, right? Healthcare. So you can define your market, your particular market, in terms of a domain or in terms of the vertical within that domain as well. So again, one more strategy, one more approach to get your objective. And once you define that, saying that I would like to focus only in the defense sector because that's something which is not many players there, but there's huge sort of money there, because a lot of obviously government contracts would be there. So you go after that specific segment. And then once you define that strategy, then you go for the tactics, which is the next level, right? So that's what is the tactical way of achieving that strategy. It is one more level below. So it's the middle management, and then the project managers, program managers, they operate in this tactical level. So you can have multiple tactics for achieving the strategy. So again, this is for each of the strategies. Say, analyze the data from dealers to understand the seasonal patterns of registration dates. So that. So we decided that we'll go after the pre-registration date. So if that were the case, we need to understand what is a time period that usually is the registration time, right? So we need to understand that, to research that. Again, if you want to really go after defense, so what are the exhibitions? Go to the trade shows, exhibitions. When are they conducted for the defense traders? Only for the traders who supply components and parts and manufacturing assemblies to the defense equipment and defense automotive industry, automotive aspects of it. It could be cars, it could be non-passenger vehicles, it could be defense vehicles, military vehicles, it could be any of these, right? So you're talking about expanding your market much before the passenger vehicle segment. Again, so set up shops and arrange for talks at the popular defense expos and exhibitions. This is what we were talking about. So that gives you the tactical ways, right? And then you come up with a project, have a website, for example, set up a website, address these, go to this, have these conferences, attend the conferences, set up a booth at these conferences. All of these are the tactical level. And then once we have defined all of these and follow it up, we need to understand whether we are following, whether we're achieving what we wanted to do, what we intended to do, right? So you need to assess and measure constantly whether in the right track or not, whether on the right road, are you going the right speed or not? And that's where these critical success factors and then the next set of other things called KPIs and PTs will help. So what are critical success factors? These are the areas that must succeed to achieve positive performance. These are the areas. So we talk about what are we measuring? We're measuring revenue. We are measuring the operational effectiveness. We're measuring the downtime, right? So all of these are the areas that we're measuring. And key performance indicators are the downtime, the amount of downtime is basically the key performance indicator, right? How much the availability is basically a key success factor, and downtime could be the time that the application was not available. So your website should be, let's say, 99.99% available, meaning it is downtime. It still has a downtime of 0.001%, but that is dependent on the infrastructure, the networks, and the technology. We just had a network outage now. In spite of all the things that we have got an optical fiber network here that I use, I still had an outage in the call. During the call, we had that about a couple of minutes that I was not available, that we could not continue with the session, which means that the downtime still played, and we need to work out ways and means to reduce that kind of a thing. So help assess how well we are achieving our CSFs. And then the measures and metrics are the key performance targets, as what we call, or the specific numbers that we need to measure, right? It could be the the time, it could be the cost that we reduced, it could be the number of times the process had been broken, the breakdown scenarios, the workarounds, all of those are actual